Hi, I'm John Maher, and this is Digital Marketing Madness. This podcast is brought to you by McDougall Interactive and Talk Marketing Academy. Today I'm here with the president of McDougall Interactive, John McDougall, and we'll be discussing microphones for podcasting. Welcome, John.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. So, John, I think we just kind of wanted to show some microphones, in particular, that would be good options for people, especially if they're just sort of getting started with podcasting, some sort of real basic solutions, and then if you want to step up a little bit to something like a more professional microphone, what you might choose. Not give people a ton of different options and have them kind of go crazy with trying to figure out like how do I choose between these 25 different microphones or something. I think we can kind of narrow it down to a few good options that people could use. So I think that where we wanted to start was maybe just a headset that we could use, a USB headset.
Here's my beat up Sennheiser PC8. I think the
I've got the same one.
Oh
here as well.
You have the advantage of the foam pads are still there.
Oh yeah, yours are missing. So yeah, I mean, just typically, you would wear it like this, and it has a USB plug, so you can just plug that USB right into your computer directly, and then you have your microphone here, and then obviously it also becomes the speakers as well. And that's one thing to consider actually with microphones for podcasting is what are you going to use for speakers, or how are you going to hear the other person if you're interviewing somebody online, like on Squadcast or that sort of thing. How are you going to hear them? Because you do sometimes have an issue where if you're using your computer speakers and the sound of that person speaking is coming out of your computer speakers, that sound can then go back into your microphone and cause an echo or even feedback. But usually these days, like more of an echo where they might talk and then you'd hear like a little echo of it looping back into your microphone. You don't want that. Yeah. So ideally you want to do a podcast where you have headphones in of some kind so that it eliminates any possibility of the sound from the other person talking going back into the microphone. So that's why you and I are both wearing earbuds here in order to prevent that.
Yep. Yeah, and
but the headset would take care of both. It has the microphone attached and it has the headphones.
Yeah,
so
and you have a little volume dial there if you want to go up or down or mute yourself. If you got to make some
the mute switch is helpful so that you can if you have to cough or something like that, you
or
can
worse.
Mute yourself and cough. Right.
It's never happened on a podcast.
So the next one that we wanted to talk about then, the headset is a USB, so it just plugs right directly into your computer, and so that makes it really easy. You can also buy USB microphones that plug directly into your computer as well, and you have the Blue Yeti. So tell us a little bit about that.
So, let me.
And that's actually what you're using right now for the podcasting. We should say that.
And actually, I need to hold it this way because I have it set, and you can explain to people the different patterns. But first, the quick gist of this one. Actually, let me step back a little bit. This one's about $99 for the basic Blue Yeti. This was like an anniversary edition or something. Was a little bit more. It's got a stand, which seems it's actually more convenient than it seems, because otherwise you need to get a whole mic stand and
connect. You can see here what I have with this whole setup with this microphone. So that's nice that it comes with just a little stand that can sit on the desk in front of you.
So for total convenience, not having to get a stand and a bunch of unusual cables, this is great. It's got underneath, you can connect to the computer with the USB cable, and then you can plug your headset right in there. And you can hear as I'm moving it around, it's really changing the tone of my voice, and it's doing a better or lesser job of picking me up. And that's based on if you want to describe, John, first the settings first on the front are just a volume knob, but the volume is actually the headphone amp.
Right, there's a headphone volume, so you don't have to change the volume on your computer. You could just change it right there on the knob in the front. And again, it's on the front so that while somebody's talking, you can just easily put your hands down and just change the volume on the front of it.
And
And then the other, where the little light is, that's a mute button. So
Yeah.
you just press that in order to mute yourself. Again, if you had to cough or something like that, it's helpful to have that button. Then John just turned it around there. So on the back, the top knob is the gain knob. So gain, it's a little complicated when you get into the details of it, but essentially it's like sort of setting the output volume of the microphone. So if John was to turn that down all the way, then you might hardly hear him while he's talking into the microphone. And if he turned it up all the way, it would be so loud that it would be peaking out and probably distorted. So he has it kind of about halfway, maybe at like 1 o'clock or so right now.
A little over half. When we started, it was about 80%. And it was overdoing it.
Yeah, we pulled it into our audio editor, and it was getting sort of cut off at the top because it was the signal was so strong. And then the pattern switch on the bottom there gives you 4 different options for patterns. The first one is 2 circles that are sort of connected to each other, left and right. That's stereo, so you can actually put that in front if you're recording something in stereo and you wanted the left and right channels to be different. You can actually put it on that and record in stereo. Probably more useful if you're like recording live music or something like that. The next option is what John's using, which is the second one there is actually the circle, which means omnidirectional. That means that everything around in a circle all around that microphone is going to get picked up equally. So could be useful if you were to have like a little round table discussion. You had people around a table and you wanted to just use one microphone and put it right in the middle of the table and have it pick up everybody equally. It could be useful for that sort of situation. Then John has it on what's called the cardioid pattern, which kind of looks like a little heart. And basically what that means is that everything in front of the microphone that's pointing toward John's face is going to get picked up loudly, and then it cuts the signal from the sides and the back, so you'll get less of the sound. It just kind of show that, John, if you're talking. So talk there and then turn it around.
Yeah, so when I'm talking right into it with that pattern and I'm talking the right way into the front of it, directly at it, it's nice and warm and present. And if I turn it around, it's like, where'd I go? Like I'm still there, but it's quieter. Even if I talk pretty loud, it's not quite fully there, but now I go back and it sounds more like I'm on the radio with a full tone there.
Right. So that's useful for cutting out the noise in the room, or like John said, if there's somebody's cutting the grass outside or something like that, it's going to cut a little bit of that extra noise. It's going to mostly pick up what's just right in front of the microphone. So that's a useful one, and that's generally what you would want to use. And then the final option there is called bidirectional. It kind of looks like an 8, and that allows that microphone to pick up in the front of it and in the back of it, but not as much on the sides. So again, that could be useful if you wanted to have an interview where you and a guest are across the table from one another, and you wanted to place it in between you, and it would pick up you and the other person equally, but it would cut the noise from the sides. So that's called bidirectional. So that's a very useful microphone, John, again, it has the stand built in, it has the patterns, it has the gain knob, which is easy to find, it has a nice volume. It has headphones that you can plug in, into it, or it doesn't come with the headphones, but it has the plug where you can plug headphones into it, and it just USB right into the computer. So that's for $100 or so, that's a nice, easy microphone to use.
Looks like it has a mohawk and arms if you're there. Anyway, yeah, so it's a classic. A lot of people, it's a very popular microphone. Now, is it the ultimate? Absolutely not. It's not the top microphone. It's just the most popular because it's damn good for short money and ease of use with the stand and easy to plug in USB. So John is on the SM7B, and I've got another one here. John, why don't you tell us about our favorite other 2 options?
Yeah, so these options are a little bit different. These are what are called dynamic microphones, and these microphones use something called an XLR input. So on the back of a microphone, you might see that kind of plug where it has 3 little, kind of wires in a way that you'd plug into, and you have a microphone cable, an XLR microphone cable that looks like this, and that microphone cable then plugs into that microphone like so, and then this microphone cable then has to plug into something in order for it to work. You can't just plug this directly into a computer. So unlike that Blue Yeti microphone that has the USB plug that you plug directly into a computer, you have to figure out a different way of getting an XLR type of microphone into a computer. And one way to do that is with an audio interface. And John is holding up his, which is the Scarlett Focusrite. And that is connected to the blue box there, which is called a Cloudlifter. So the Cloudlifter boosts the signal. I think it's a 25 decibel boost to the signal, just to make sure, because these microphones are what are called passive microphones. They don't have any like electronics in them. They're not plugged into anything. They don't have a battery. So the signal that comes out of these is fairly weak. So in order to boost that up for, like a computer to be able to use, they really need to have a little bit of a boost to them. So generally, you're probably going to need something like the Cloudlifter in order to boost the signal. And then the Focusrite, it's so you plug the microphone into the Cloudlifter. The Cloudlifter is then plugged into the Focusrite, and then the Focusrite would have a USB output that would then go plug into your computer. And the Focusrite is called an audio interface. There's other versions of those.
USB over here.
I use one here that's called an M Audio M-Track Duo. This has two inputs in it. There's also an M-Track Solo, but this is my version of that I'm using in order to get this microphone into the computer, the audio from this one. So,
and a lot of people use that SM7B, the Shure SM7B. Joe Rogan, I think Pat Flynn. A lot of people. I mean, and
yeah, you see, the more that it has kind of a distinctive look to it, and the more that you, it also can come with a different top part of this that's like a little fatter. So you might see this same thing, but with a little bit of like a fatter pop filter on the front of this. But whether it's this or the larger one, it's the same microphone. And if you see that sort of the Shure logo there and this sort of circular shape to it, it's probably this microphone. You see them all the time. But this is a really good microphone. It does cost around between $350 to $400 for this microphone. So unlike the $100
again, you need the
spent on the Yeti,
$160 Focusrite and the $150 Cloudlifter and a mic stand, and you're up to $750.
Right. So now you're looking at $700 or something like that in order to get a nice microphone like this with the Cloudlifter and the interface.
But it's got a beautiful sound. John, for the last decade or since 2008, I think, we started officially business podcasting with clients. I think we did it even before that on just that little, the Roland device you showed earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you'd set me up in the studio with, the mixing board and the whole 9 yards, you'd just give me the headphones and set me in front of one of those, and I'd feel like I'm in an audio couch. I mean, that thing is round and warm.
Right, like you're on the radio.
It's nice, yeah. Well, actually, before we get into the last microphone, and then we'll have a few extra tips, other mic quick suggestions. But before we get into the last of our main microphones, what are the buttons or things you got to deal with the SM7B? Are there any buttons or things?
Yeah, so nothing big on the Shure SM7B. It does have a couple of switches in the back. And that is a high-pass filter and a low-pass filter. So you can basically set that. A high-pass filter actually lets the high frequencies pass through, and it cuts the bass sound. And then a low-pass filter is the opposite of that. It lets the low frequencies through, and it cuts the high frequencies. So you can have different combinations of those where you're either cutting both the high and the low frequencies down, or just one or the other. The high-pass filter where you're cutting the low signal is often used for when you have a microphone that's connected to like your table. It helps to cut down the booming sound when you might bump into the desk or put your fist on the table or something like that. It kind of cuts down that booming sound. But then the the low pass filter, which lets the high signal through, you can cut that in order to, if maybe your voice has a particular like high frequency.
Some people are nasally, some people are more bass, so you can play with it.
Right. So depending on your voice, you might play around with it and find what filters work best for your voice, basically. Yeah. You want to show the next microphone, which is the Electro-Voice RE20.
Yep. And that also has just a high pass filter. Is that what you said?
That's just the high pass filter, again, that cuts the low frequencies.
Yeah, on this one, the SM7B has two variations.
Has both.
This one is just one. But I did try it on each setting. I have it flat, that's not cutting, John. Is that how that works?
Right.
It's just flat, but I can't test it right now because it's not on, but I do really like this. I did our video sales letter with this and got some good comments that it had a real nice voiceover quality.
And I used to do radio, and we used those for microphones at our radio station as well.
Very common at radio stations.
Familiar with that.
My father's ad agency in the 80s had two of these. I didn't know what they were. When he later sold his agency, I had them in my garage and gave them away. I was like, oh, these are very expensive microphones. They just look like weird. I was if someone at the time as a guitar player with using these Shure SM57s and 58s, thinking, oh, those are what I need. But geez, little did I know there was a reason to hold on to those. But anyway, I bought this one a couple years ago and love it. And as John said, very popular from agency recording studios to radio stations across the country. And it's just got that one button on it. So there's not a lot to it, but again, it's got the XLR cable. So, unlike the Yeti or the headset, it's not USB. You got to deal with the Cloudlifter or the Focusrite, different, types of gear to get it working.
Right. And that's if you want to get the microphone signal to go into your computer, which you don't have to do for podcasting. I mean, you do if you want to interview people online, using Squadcast or another service like that. You could, if you wanted to just set up a podcast studio and have it, at your office, say, you could just record locally. And again, you could do that with a computer, just plug in the microphone into the computer and recording onto that. Another option would be to record onto something like a digital audio recorder, which looks like this. This is a little Roland RO5 recorder. But in order to get the microphone into that, you're going to need to plug the microphones into a mixing board, which would be something like this. And again, this has these like XLR inputs, so you'd be plugging the microphones directly into these XLR inputs and then coming out of the mixing board here into the digital audio recorder. So that could be a little option.
And what cable goes out of the mixer into that?
Just like sort of a typical, I have like an audio output that's, I think I'm actually using these
like an RCA
tape out RCA type of jacks here. You can either use those or you can come out using a 1/4-inch cable like you might use for like a guitar.
That Roland has both of those.
And then on the other side, the Roland has a little, basically like a headphone jack kind of input on the side. Mm-hmm. So you have to have a cable that goes from like these RCAs and then goes into a stereo. With a little adapter.
Yeah.
So I have that set up, and actually, this is what I use when we're doing podcasts with a client, and I need to go to the client's office and record live with them, say in their conference room or something like that. I actually have a pair of. I have this SM58 old microphone that I was showing earlier, and you have an SM57 microphone.
Yeah, and these are indestructible. You
have a really old one that has duct tape all over
it. This thing is. I mean, look at that thing. It's rusted in the middle, and
it's still working.
Yeah, I mean, these things.
So I have a pair of those that are a little newer.
Yeah,
I have a pair of those, and then I plug those into the mixing board, and then out of the mixing board into the little Roland recorder. So that's an option if you want to just do podcasting
if you're traveling,
that way.
You don't want to bring your RE20 or your 7B and bang them around in your
Right.
drop them on the ground.
Yeah, you're probably not going to. Oh, I should mention, too, that like with a microphone like this, you and I both on these microphones have them attached to these stands. So that's another expense, too. You're probably going to need some sort of stand to either put it on your desk
60, 70 bucks or something like that. I mean, it adds up.
Right. Right.
So, but again, if you want really warm sound, the Shure SM7B or the Roland or the Electro-Voice RE20, those are great ways to go. And so, John, if people want to just some other ideas, what are, again, these are the ones we use. I still sometimes just, if I'm doing something quick, sometimes I'm on a podcast just on a headset, or the Blue Yeti, or either of the SM7B or the RE20. But what else, John? So if you want to keep it simple, do those. But if you want some other ideas, what are they?
Yeah, so I'll just give you one other option for an XLR microphone like this. The Heil, H-E-I-L, the Heil PR40 is another very popular microphone. I've seen that on a lot of other podcasts as well, and that has a really nice sound to it, too. It looks very similar to this Shure SM7B, maybe a little bit smaller than that. So that's another option. And then on the USB side, like the Blue Yeti microphone that you have, there's a company called Rode, R-O-D-E, and Rode makes the Podcaster microphone, which is another good option. I think that's a little more expensive than the Blue Yeti. I think it's closer to $200 instead of $100, but still less expensive than
quite popular,
this Shure
though.
or your Electro-Voice. But another very popular USB from the Blue microphone.
Yeti and popular. And then you've got a fun microphone behind you, right? That's kind of got the Elvis
I have this.
vibe.
I have this Shure Unidyne. It's called the 55SH Shure Unidyne microphone. I actually use this for some live music performances because it just has that cool old fashioned look, like you're Elvis or something like that on stage. And it looks. I have it on a little short microphone stand here so that I can put it on my desk. And sometimes I'll use this for just. I don't use it as much for podcast recording because I have this microphone here. But I have used it for some Zoom calls and things like that, just to kind of just for fun to have that cool look. But you could use this for podcasting as well. It's a perfectly nice microphone. It costs about $180 or so.
Oh yeah.
And it's it actually has a pretty nice sound to it, and it looks really neat. So yeah, that's be another option for you. So you can have fun, and you can find good microphones out there. But I think definitely you want to have something with a pretty decent quality to it. And the good news is these days you can get pretty good microphone quality in both USB versions and in these sort of more professional, if you will, XLR versions. But those again require extra equipment in order for you to get those into your computer.
Yeah, and then you can just go into a tool like Squadcast or Riverside and be up and running. Like say you got the Blue Yeti or the Sennheiser headset and you got it delivered, tomorrow from Amazon, or you walk into Best Buy and grab a $100 mic or a $30, $40 headset, and then you sign up for Squadcast or Riverside, and you're podcasting immediately. If you get the more complicated gear, there's some setup and learning curve. So, getting started simply with the basic gear is probably the way to go, just to get yourself going. Because in digital marketing, one of the key things, especially talk marketing, where you need to be consistent, and talk marketing lets you be consistent, because if so much easier to have this conversation like we had today than if we had to write this whole thing out. We would spend 4 hours or so writing something of this length, at least a couple hours to write a good blog post. Sure, you can write them in 20 minutes, you can write them in an hour, but at the level of depth we're talking, there's a lot to that. And if you're a writer, you and I are both writers and bloggers, but a lot of our clients, they're not. And so to get them talking is easy. And some of them have kissed the Blarney Stone like repetitively. They can talk their asses off. And that's great, because we get them talking. We keep it structured with 3 or 5 questions, 10, 12-minute simple podcasts, do them every week. Do an hour and a half in sessions every other month, and they've got a weekly podcast with 12-minute roughly 1,500 word blog post easily. So getting that gear going, getting a simple cloud-based tool, and you can have blog posts up and running that boost your SEO quickly. Can you do it with writing? Sure. Can you hire writers? Sure. But to get the level of knowledge already in your head, if you're an owner of a business, maybe you've even been a couple of decades or more running a company, whether it's solar, installation, or a lawyer or a finance person, whatever it is, pest control. I mean, you've done podcasts, John, with so many industries, and, to get that content right out of the expert's head at that level, to get an agency's writer or an outsourced writer to do that, it's going to be tough to compete, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
all right. Well, thanks very much for talking to me today about this, John. Appreciate it.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And for more information about digital marketing, visit McDougallInteractive.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And thanks for listening. For John McDougall, see you next time on Digital Marketing Madness.
See you later.